4 years of reviewing wireless headphones, this is the most ambitious headphone I have ever used. This is the Ecoute TH1. It's a wireless headphone with an integrated tube amplifier, and as of early 2026, the only one in the world. The sound is full and organic, like a desktop headphone driven with a tube amp, plus dual mono amplification, plus FPGA chips for EQ that's more impactful than any wireless headphone I've ever used. And it's not just a gimmick. This thing could genuinely be your entire high-end audio system if you don't have one at home, or your portable system if you do and you want to take that tube quality with you. Now, as of this filming, it's $900. It's not cheap. And that's because of all the engineering that went into this. Nothing this ambitious is perfect. There are issues I need to talk about. But first, I'm Norb, and this unit was provided to me by Ecoute Audio for my honest review. This review was supposed to come out back in October, and I apologize to Ecoute for how long this has taken. They have never pressured me about getting it done, but it has taken far longer than I usually take. And as you watch this, keep in mind that Ecoute Audio has launched a Kickstarter for the Ecoute TH2. Full transparency, I'm already a backer, but they didn't even mention it to me. I just got an ad and I signed up. That should tell you something right away. All that to say, they've had zero input into what I say here outside of just technical details. If you have questions, drop them in the comments and I'll answer what I can. All right, let's dive in, because to really understand this headphone, you need to understand why tube amps matter and the technology behind the TH1. Making wireless headphones is hard, like really hard. You're dealing with drivers, build materials, airflow, acoustics, circuit boards, batteries, electromagnetic interference, signal processing amplification, all crammed inside an ear cup. Companies like Sony, Sennheiser, Bose, and Apple, they do this well. They've built successful businesses around it. Wireless headphones are genuinely impressive pieces of technology if you actually study how they work. It's one of the things I love about what I do. But pretty much everyone does it the same way. Speaker and battery connected to a circuit board with a DAC and a solid-state amplifier. That's it. That's the formula. Ecoute asked a different question. How do you make a Bluetooth headphone sound like a wired headphone with a tube amp? And the obvious answer is you shove a tube amp in there. That sounds a lot more rude than it was meant to. Now, if you're not into audio, you might be thinking, why would I want that? And if you are into audio, you're probably thinking, wait, how is that even possible? Tubes, or valves, depending on where you're from, are an older technology that is seeing a resurgence in the high-end audio world. They add a type of distortion that is pleasing to the human ear, like the classic sound of an electric guitar through a tube amp. A lot of people really love that classic organic sound, myself included. Now, I know, distortion sounds like a bad thing, but here's what I've learned. Imperfections are what make music special. It's why people love vinyl, even though digital is technically more accurate. It's why people love real instruments, which can sound very different if you listen closely. There's a reason people pay millions for a Stradivarius violin. And it's why guitarists pay thousands of dollars for tube amps. Solid-state amplifiers, which is what every other wireless headphone uses, they deliver a technically perfect signal with all the detail from the recording. But very often, they can sound clinical and exhausting. Vacuum tube amplification adds harmonic distortion that isn't random. It organically works with natural harmonic structures. This is why tubes sound more natural, more musical, even though I hate that word in this context, warmer, and I dare say more enjoyable, even when they're technically less perfect. Now, this is all personal preference. Some people like tubes, some don't. The TH1 is meant for that tube-loving audience who wants to take that sound on the go. And until now, that was just not possible. So that's the why. Now, the big question is, does it actually work? Yeah, it really does. Let me tell you what you're getting here. If you're using the TH1 through Bluetooth, it uses SBC, AAC, and the LDAC codecs, which I know will make a lot of people very happy. At $900, I would expect it to use LDAC. As for latency, it's there, but I never noticed it. I wouldn't use these for competitive gaming, at least not wireless anyway. Just the lag is just a little bit too much for that, I think. But for watching movies and YouTube, I thought this was just fine. No issues from me. If you want to use it wired, you can use a USB-C port, which handles lossless sound while also powering the headphones. Now, I did have issues using the USB-C cable on both my Mac and iPhone. It just immediately went into charging mode. But it worked fine on Windows, so your mileage may vary. It's an iPhone, Apple thing. It's not a thing with the headphones. As for the sound itself, and I'm going to talk about wireless first, it's very good. The default tuning is mildly warm, with a mild bass emphasis, but not a bass head tuning. Some people might want more bass out of the box. I find it warm and relaxed. Now, I specify default tuning because it does use the Ecoute app, which includes an 8-band equalizer. The app has 15 different presets. My favorites up to now have been the Ecoute default setting and then the balanced neutral, although I did create a bass-heavy version of both of those because bass. And here's where it gets crazy. The EQ has a fantastic quality where the headphone picks up the EQ very, very well. Most headphones, you tweak the EQ and it's like subtle changes. With the TH1, the FPGA technology means that the EQ isn't just layered on top, it fundamentally changes how the headphone sounds. No matter what you do with the EQ, the Focal Batiste is going to sound like a Focal Batiste. The Bowers & Wilkins PX8 S2 will sound like a PX8 S2. That is not the case with the TH1. I can make these sound like completely different headphones just by switching EQ profiles. It's the most flexible wireless headphone I have ever used. It matches desktop headphones. One annoyance though, whenever I exit the EQ screen and then come back into it, it automatically resets to the Ecoute default setting. I really wish it would remember my last setting. Hopefully, this is something they can fix with a software update. Now, how does the sound signature work across different genres? For acoustic and indie music, this thing excels. Lifelike vocals and woody guitar textures that just feel natural. The tube harmonics make acoustic instruments feel alive and immersive with a wide stage that separates finger-picking from strings beautifully. Singer-songwriter stuff like indie folk, this is where the TH1 really shows what it can do. And if you like that kind of music, this is definitely one you need to consider. Classical is another strong suit, for the most part. The wide soundstage and the excellent orchestral separation mean that you can pick out individual sections clearly. The layering, the decay on the strings, the brass, it's really impressive. The smooth treble keeps violins from ever getting shrill, although it takes away the realism. But still, it's very comfortable, it's enjoyable, it's something that I really enjoy, and you get really good physicality from the bass, especially if you bump up the EQ. For rock, strong dynamics, textured guitars, chesty vocals really come out. And the Miley Cyrus version of Zombie has this dimensionality where you can actually hear the crowd beyond the head stage. The tube sweetness makes electronic guitars and amp feel organic rather than digital. It makes them feel more real. Jazz works really well too. Natural mids, smooth percussion, and bass with proper decay, a good air of sparkle. Love's Dreamer is a perfect example of this. From the bass to the piano playing and then her voice coming in, you feel like you're there in the audience. For hip-hop and electronic, the deep, tight sub-bass handles modern production very well. Although on really bass-heavy tracks, you might want to use the app EQ to tame things down a little bit. The overall takeaway, this headphone is versatile, but it really shines on nuanced instrument-focused music. Now, heads up that if you are listening for the first time to something like this, where it's very mid-focused by default, it may sound kind of odd right away. Use the EQ to tune it like you'd like to hear it. You can hear the real power at that point. The tube harmonics and white soundstage are the hooks here. The app presets, the Ecoute for warmth, the Harman for more neutral, make it adaptable to whatever you're listening to. So yes, the tube amp concept, it really works. I feel that it sounds amazing. Now, let me tell you how they made it work because that's where things get really interesting. Here's a challenge. Tube amps tend to make things sound warm and sometimes closed in. If you are not used to tubes and you use one for the first time, especially with a warm headphone, you know exactly what I'm talking about. With a closed-back wireless headphone, that could lead to a boxy sound where all the instruments feel crammed together. That is decidedly not great. So, how did Ecoute solve for this? First, dual mono amplification. Normally, sound goes through the DAC into a single amplifier, and then the amplifier splits the signal into both speakers. The DAC separates the music, converting digital to analog, isolating a violin from a voice and from drums, and the single amplifier delivers that separation. With the TH1, the signal splits at the DAC level. Each channel gets its own dedicated preamp and amplifier. This helps retain that audio separation to prevent that boxy sound. You get a clearer soundstage, better instrument separation, cleaner bass response, and better low-level detail. Second, FPGA technology. Ecoute Audio implemented FPGA chips, field programmable gateway array chips, for better equalization and more precise tuning control. If you're into retro gaming, yes, it's those same FPGA chips. They give a better overall control over the sound than you'd find in other wireless headphones. This matters a lot when you're introducing both analog and digital pathways into the picture. This is why the EQ on the TH1 is more impactful than any other wireless headphone that I have ever used. It is not just software EQ layered on top. It is firmware level control. And finally, the tube itself. Ecoute is using the new Tube 6P1 Triode developed by Korg and Nortec. It doesn't look like a traditional tube. It doesn't look like a light bulb. It's like a little block because it's designed for portable platforms. It has major advantages though. Power efficiency, a small size, it runs cool, lasts longer, it's more durable. It's rated at 30,000 hours for continuous use. If you use these for 2 hours a day, that's about 41 years. 8 hours a day, 7 days a week, still over 10 years. And here's something that shocked me. These don't run hot. I was genuinely surprised at just how little heat they generate. The Tube technology is a major reason for the $900 price tag, but the engineering that went into making this work with a wireless headphone, it is absolutely remarkable. Normally, tubes are big, they're hot, they are power hungry. That's not the case here at all. And the fact that you can actually run this on a portable battery, yeah, it gets 20 hours, 30 if on standby, but the fact that this even exists is absolutely amazing. Now let's talk about what this thing looks like because that's art all its own. The TH1 leans hard into retrofuturist vibes. Think mid-century sci-fi, The Rocketeer, for example. The rounded metal cups, the vents at the bottom, that lighted tube window, it is something I absolutely adore. I love the direction they took with this aesthetic. These come in two colors, gunmetal black and satin aluminum with a beige fabric. Both have this matte finish you see here. Of the two, I find the aluminum more striking, more in tone with that retro feel. The black version, it kind of gives me Darth Vader vibes. They're made from aluminum throughout, with fabric on the ear cups and the headband. On the right ear cup, you have USB-C and the 3.5mm audio ports. You also have 3 physical buttons, plus a large clickable control pad for volume and track navigation. I like that there's no touch controls, just physical buttons and that pad. My only change would be adding a tactile bump to the middle button so you know which one you're pressing without having to look at it. The build quality is solid. The hinges are metal with smooth, dampened action. When I twist the ear cups, there's no creaking, there's no popping. The matte finish resists fingerprints extremely well, so they always look great. Distinctive, certainly. One thing I'm not crazy about, the buttons have become a little bit loose over time, but mine was a floor sample at an audio show, so yours probably won't have the same problem. The case itself is a hard case and it is very protective, but it is big. This is a chunker. If you travel a lot, size may become an issue. It has a lot of empty space too, which I wish was more usable. Like for example, this whole thing at the bottom here is just, you could add a zipper and stick notebooks in there. It'd be fine for that. It also comes with a USB-C to USB-C cable for charging and audio. The 3.5mm cable is not included, so you'll need to supply your own if you want to use it passively, or you can buy one from Ecoute themselves. I mentioned earlier that you can use these passively with your own gear. Most wireless headphones sound terrible when you try to use them wired and they're powered off. I get the question all the time, by the way, in the channel. What DAC should I use my XM4 with? And the answer is none. Don't do that. The Sennheiser Momentum 4, it's a shouty mess when passive. The XM6, a boomy mess. The full cavities, you can't even use those passively. You have to power them on. A lot of other wireless headphones either don't work at all passively or sound significantly worse than when powered. But again, the TH1, completely different. When you use these passively, you skip all the digital processing, the tube amp, the dual mono amps, the FPGA EQ, all of that. These just become straight up desktop quality headphones. And the sound transformed into this clear, rich, full sound with a deep, powerful bass, these buttery vocals, and a smooth musical treble that is less concerned with being precise and precise reproduction and more about the enjoyment of music. I've used this with both the Chord Mojo 2 and the iFi GoLink Max and the Nice HTK Octave, and the sound is astounding. It's detailed, cleared, and distinct without being shrill or shouty at any point, while at the same time being warm and powerful. Now, they are closed back, so you don't get that openness of an open back. If you're expecting that, don't come here. Don't go to any closed back headphone. But that is a fair trade for what you get. They're easy to drive from a portable source. I had no problem powering them from my phone directly or various DACs, but they are very sensitive to source quality. If you're using an external DAC with these, I recommend something with a brighter tilt. Again, the Nice HTK Octave and the Chord Mojo 2 did great. This is why I keep saying that this could be your entire system. You get a high-quality wireless headphone for convenience and a high-end wired headphone for when you're at home lounging around. So let's talk about comfort. The TH1 weighs 424 grams, about 15 ounces, or just under a pound. It is a chunky boy. They are heavy for wireless headphones, but on par with high-end audiophile wired headphones. Wearing these has been fine overall for longer sessions, but it is not something that I can wear all day nonstop. It's not the Bose Quiet Comfort, for example, which is about half of the weight. The impact hits in two areas. First, the headband. Because of the width, I found it put some pressure on the top of my head. The foam took care of a lot of that, but it was still pretty concentrated. It does get better over time, but with the TH2, they actually use a wider strap for comfort, so I'm glad they listened to feedback from other reviewers who said the same thing. Second, the clamping force. The TH1 uses a hinge design that's similar to the AirPods Max and Sony XM6. That design helps distribute the clamping force well, and I found it to be just right. But if you're sensitive around the jaw, this might impact you negatively. Here's something interesting though. So the AirPods Max give me headaches when I fly with them. They are lighter, but they have the same hinge design. So there is that. The Max weighs about 40 grams less than the TH1, but I don't get headaches with the TH1 when flying. I do have sinus issues. I get very sensitive when flying, so I pay a lot of attention to that. So if you have sinus issues, this worked for me. That's what I'm going to say. I have flown with these a few times now, and every time it has been great. The only thing I'm not in love with is the fabric on the ear pads. My ears are large, probably larger than average, so the fabric rubs after a little while. The ear cups are also a bit shallow for my ears specifically. Ecoute says that leather or leather-like pads are coming in the future, and I will be grabbing those as soon as they're available. I don't know if they're going to come for the TH1. Maybe they'll come for the TH1. I hope they come for the TH2. Maybe the Kony will make some before Ecoute does. The TH1 features active noise canceling and transparency modes. The transparency mode seems tuned to prioritize voices and environmental awareness rather than the full range of sound reproduction, which I appreciate from a safety standpoint when walking around outside. The noise canceling is also very good. Some mainstream flagships have much better ANC because that's what they focus on, but I am not unhappy with what these provide. Great for flights, great for cafes, basically for everything that I actually want to do with these. That said, I feel that the noise canceling impacts the sound a little more than I'd like. The TH1 is extremely sensitive and resolving, so the impact is heard more with these than other headphones. On a plane, you won't notice. In a quiet room or in a cafe, you will definitely notice, at least if you're sensitive to that. The app also has a volume limiter for hearing safety. If you already have a limit on your phone, this stacks on top of that, so be careful with that. But still, I love seeing more hearing protection features on headphones. Let's talk about the problems. Again, nothing this ambitious is going to be perfect. This is officially Ecoute's first product, and while it is great, there are issues I have had. First, if you tap or rub your finger against the left ear cup during use, there's a high-pitched whine in the right ear cup. This also happens if you take the headphones off and put them back on. Take a listen. Now, not every speaker might have been sensitive enough to hear that, so if you can't hear it, that's fine. It might be your hearing, it might be your speaker, whatever. It's a very, very high-pitched noise. Here's the thing, though. That's actually expected with tube amps. This might concern you at first. I know that if I'd spent $900 of my own money on these, this might be the issue that would make me want to go ahead and return them. But then again, I'm somebody that I like the tube amp sound, but I wasn't quite as used to the drawbacks, and that's one of them. The second issue is that the TH1 is prone to electrical interference. If I hold my phone too close to the left ear cup, I start hearing buzzing and crackling. It's like putting the phone next to an unshielded audio cable. Neither of these, however, are showstoppers for me, but these are issues that I hope Ecoute addresses with the TH2. Now, despite all that, let's address the elephant in the room. Are these worth $900? I think they are, despite its flaws. And the caveats around my particular sample, this is the single most impressive wireless headphone I have ever used. Whether that's worth $900 to you depends on how much you value that tube amp sound and that level of flexibility. Now, if you want to hear about a DAC amp to pair with these, check out this comparison between the Chord Mojo 2 and the i5 Griffin, or check out this much more portable dongle DAC amp by Nice HCK. Thanks for watching. Hit like and subscribe if this was helpful, and with that, take care.